The smell was wrong. Not the kind of wrong a human would notice. No rotten garbage, no gas leak, no sour milk forgotten on the counter. This was something heavier, metallic, layered with dust, sweat, and a sharp tang that didn't belong. Fear. Arlo stopped at the threshold of the house, his paws pressed against the cold wooden porch. The door was still ajar, creaking softly in the evening breeze, but no one came to greet them. His tail, usually a banner of excitement, froze midway. His ears rotated like radar dishes, listening for the faintest sound inside. His human, Jack, stepped up behind him, crunching the gravel under his boots. "Stay close, boy," Jack muttered, the way people do when they're talking to themselves but need to pretend it's for someone else. Arlo didn't need the instruction. He wasn't going anywhere, at least not yet. They had been called here because of the missing woman. Her name, Arlo had heard Jack say, was Emily Carter. She'd been gone for 3 days, and no one had seen or heard from her. But Arlo didn't need to know names. He had the scent, and it was everywhere. It clung to the porch rail, to the doorknob, to the narrow hallway beyond. A young woman, healthy, always on the move. But here, her scent changed, grew jagged, erratic, the way it does when fear spikes and the heart pounds too fast. He could trace her movements like a map in his head, standing at the door, turning sharply, running, and then nothing. Gone. He stepped inside. The house was eerily still. Dust motes floated in the thin bars of light spilling through half-closed blinds. A coffee cup sat on the kitchen counter, a ring of dark liquid dried at its lip. No signs of struggle. No broken glass. Humans might think that meant nothing bad happened. But Arlo knew better. Sometimes the worst things left the quietest marks. Jack walked past him, scanning the living room like the ex-cop he was. "Emily? Anyone home?" His voice echoed emptily through the house. Arlo didn't bother listening. He already knew the answer. He padded toward the hallway, nose twitching. The smell was stronger here. There were other traces too, cigarette smoke, faint but fresh. Not Emily's. Male. Overconfident. He filed it away. Halfway down the hall, his ears perked at a sound, a faint creak above. He froze, listening. But it didn't come again. His gaze drifted to the bottom of the staircase. The carpet fibers were flattened unevenly. A heavy boot, at least 2 sizes larger than Emily's, had been here. Recently. Arlo's lip twitched, revealing a flash of teeth. Jack didn't notice. He was crouched by the kitchen table, looking through a stack of unopened mail. Bills, flyers, nothing helpful. Arlo moved deeper into the house, each step deliberate, silent. In the bedroom, the smell nearly overwhelmed him. Emily had spent time here, a lot of it. He sniffed the comforter, the carpet, the nightstand. Underneath the scent of perfume and laundry detergent, there was something else, adrenaline. She'd been afraid, desperately so, in this room. And then, something metallic. Arlo lowered his nose to the floor near the bed frame. A faint smear of rust-colored stain clung to the wood. Humans might not notice it. He did. Blood. His muscles tensed, every instinct telling him this was no ordinary disappearance. "Arlo." Jack's voice called from the hallway. Arlo didn't answer. He stared at the stain a moment longer, then turned sharply toward the open window. The scent trail didn't end in the house. Whoever took her had left that way, and they hadn't been careful. Jack appeared in the doorway, frowning. "Find something, boy." Arlo barked once, sharp, deliberate. Jack followed his gaze to the window. "Out there." Arlo didn't wait for a command. He jumped onto the sill, claws scraping the wood, and leapt into the backyard. The trail was fresher here, blending Emily's fading scent with the stranger's. The grass was bent where someone had run through it. Arlo followed it to the back fence, nose pressed to the ground. And then, suddenly, he stopped. The smell changed. A new layer. Sharp, bitter, chemical. Someone had tried to mask their tracks. Bleach, maybe. Clever. But not clever enough. Arlo growled low in his throat. The man who had been here was smart. Dangerous. And arrogant. Jack caught up, panting. "You got something?" Arlo barked again, his eyes locked on the line of trees at the edge of the yard. The trail led into the woods. The man hadn't just taken Emily. He'd left a message, and Arlo intended to read it. Arlo hated this town. He hadn't been here long, but that was enough. It smelled wrong. Not the comforting scent of home, not the warm grass of Jack's yard or the clean soap of his hands. Here, everything was dulled by cigarette smoke, spilled oil, and the cloying sweetness of cheap perfume. It smelled like people who wanted to be someone else. People who hid things. Jack would have called it a quiet place. Arlo knew better. Quiet was just another word for pretending. Jack leaned against the hood of his truck, scanning Main Street like the cop he used to be. His badge was gone, but the habit wasn't. Small town, he muttered. Means people talk. We'll get answers. Arlo sat at his feet, ears flicking at every voice, every car, door slamming shut. People did talk here, in whispers, with nervous glances, like gossiping birds on a wire. Emily Carter. Everyone knew her name now. Jack adjusted his ball cap, squinting at the police station across the street. Sheriff's office first. Then we'll check out that cafe she worked at. Arlo followed silently, his paws padding across the cracked pavement. The sheriff smelled like stress. Sheriff Howard was a broad man with a soft face that tried to look stern. He shook Jack's hand like someone who had done it too many times already today. Mr. Hale, Howard said. Thanks for coming down. Jack nodded. Anything new on Emily? Howard sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Nothing we can share yet. But we're working leads. These things take time. Arlo lay at Jack's feet, but his eyes were on the sheriff. People lied with their bodies before they lied with words. Howard's shoulders slumped. His gaze darted to the side every time he said, working leads. He wasn't just holding back information. He was scared. Arlo's nose twitched. Scared of what? Or who? Back outside, Jack's frustration was palpable. He kicked at a loose pebble on the sidewalk. They're stonewalling. I know that look. They're scared to poke the wrong bear. Arlo glanced at him. Jack wasn't wrong. They walked toward the cafe, the Bluebird Diner, according to the peeling sign above its door. It was a tired-looking place, the kind where coffee tasted like burnt hope. The bell above the door jingled as they entered. Inside, the air was heavy with bacon grease and lies. 3 waitresses bustled behind the counter, but only one bothered to look at Jack. Tall, mid-20s, sharp cheekbones and sharper eyes. Her name tag read Lily. You're looking for Emily, she said flatly, like it wasn't a question. Jack nodded. Jack Hale, friend of the family. Lily's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Family? Emily didn't really do family. Arlo tilted his head. Lily's scent was complicated, shampoo and cigarette smoke, overlaid with a faint chemical tang. Cleaning products? No, too strong for that. Something she shouldn't have been near. Jack rested his elbows on the counter. When was the last time you saw her? Lily shrugged. 3 nights ago. She left after her shift. Said she had an interview in the morning. An interview? For what? Didn't say, but she was excited. Dressed up more than usual. Arlo's ears perked. Excited. But the trail he'd followed reeked of fear. Something had changed fast. Jack leaned closer. Do you know who she was meeting? Lily shook her head, but her heartbeat spiked. Arlo heard it, a fast, staccato rhythm under her ribs. She was lying. Back outside, Jack sighed. She knows more than she's saying. Arlo barked once, sharply. Yeah, Jack said. I felt that too. They headed back toward the truck, but Arlo stopped halfway. The wind carried a new smell. Strong. Bitter. Familiar. Cigarette smoke, the same one from Emily's house. Arlo's fur bristled as his head turned. Across the street, leaning casually against a black SUV, was a man in a tailored suit. Too polished for this town. He smoked lazily, his sunglasses reflecting the afternoon sun. And he was watching them. When Arlo's eyes locked on him, the man smiled. Not friendly. Not nervous. A predator's smile. Jack didn't notice. He was busy unlocking the truck. But Arlo didn't take his eyes off the stranger. The man flicked his cigarette to the ground, crushed it under a shiny leather shoe, and tipped his head in a mock greeting. Then he got into the SUV and drove away. Arlo's nose followed the fading trail of smoke and expensive cologne. That was him. The other scent from the house. The one who took Emily. Jack climbed into the driver's seat. Come on, boy. We'll grab lunch, then check Emily's apartment. Arlo jumped into the truck bed, but kept his eyes on the road where the SUV had vanished. The game had changed. The man wasn't hiding anymore. And that meant he wanted to be found. The woods didn't lie. Arlo trusted them more than he trusted people, more than he trusted walls or doors or the false safety of quiet houses. Out here, no one could cover their scent completely. Not with bleach. Not with smoke. Not with lies. The trail Emily left behind was still faint on the edges of his mind. A memory his nose clung to like an echo. but overlaid on top of it was something fresher, sharper. Him, the man from the SUV. Arlo pressed his snout to the damp ground, inhaling deeply. Jack hated the woods at night. Arlo could hear it in his breathing. Shallow, cautious. "Damn it, Arlo," Jack muttered. "Why do I always let you lead me into places like this?" "Because you don't have anyone else who will," Arlo thought, though the words stayed trapped in the quiet language of his head. They followed a narrow trail, lit only by Jack's flashlight and the glow of a waxing moon. The air smelled of moss and rotting leaves. But under that, under everything, was that bitter, chemical stench of bleach. The man had been here. He'd tried to erase something. Arlo's paws found prints in the mud. Human. Heavy boots. He didn't like how fresh they felt. The trail led them to an old hunting cabin, half collapsed, with boarded windows and ivy climbing its walls. It sat at the edge of a clearing, as if hiding itself from anyone who didn't know where to look. Jack whistled low. Why does every bad story end in a place like this? Arlo growled softly. Jack's light swept the clearing. Stay sharp, boy. This feels wrong. It was wrong. Arlo moved toward the door, every muscle tensed. His nose twitched. Human scent. Faint but undeniable. Emily had been here. But she wasn't here now. And someone had been back recently. Inside, the cabin smelled like mold and old wood, but something else, too. Gasoline. Jack crouched by a pile of ash in the fireplace. He burned something, he murmured. Papers? Clothes. Arlo sniffed the ashes. No, not just papers. Fabric. Cotton. Emily's. They searched the cabin, but it gave them nothing. Jack found empty cigarette packs, crushed beer cans, and a single key with no markings. Arlo found claw marks in the floorboards, deep, desperate scrapes from someone trying to get free. Emily had been here, alive, and terrified. Arlo pressed his nose to the ground near the far wall, following a faint trace to the back door. He paused, sniffing the threshold. Fresh air, and something else. Perfume. Not Emily's. Someone else had been here with the man. Arlo woke to the sound of tires on gravel. He was up in an instant, paws silent against the hardwood floor as he sprinted to the window. The scent hit him before his eyes confirmed it. Cologne, smoke, the faint sting of bleach. Him, the man from the SUV. By the time Jack stumbled out of his bedroom, bleary-eyed and clutching his sidearm, the black SUV was already gone. Arlo, Jack muttered, following the dog's gaze to the driveway. Someone was here? Arlo growled low, his tail rigid. Jack squatted by the window, scanning the gravel. Damn it, even a human could see it. Tire tracks, fresh. But Arlo smelled more. The man had stood there for a while, watching, and he hadn't been alone. There was another scent. Female. Faint. Emily's. Arlo couldn't be sure, but it was close enough to make his fur stand on end. Jack exhaled through his teeth. He wants us to know he was here. He was right. The man wasn't hiding anymore. He wanted to be seen. 2 hours later, they found the envelope. Jack spotted it first, tucked under the windshield wiper of his truck. White. Clean. Untouched by morning dew. Arlo sniffed it before Jack opened it. That smell, the same damn cologne. Inside, there was no letter. No demands. Just a photograph. Emily Carter. Alive. Blindfolded. Bound to a chair in a dark room. Jack's knuckles went white around the picture. Son of a, he cut himself off, shoving the photo back in the envelope. Arlo stared at it. Not at Emily. At the background. Wooden walls. Cracked concrete floor. And behind her, barely visible, a symbol spray painted in red. A raven. Jack slammed his fist against the truck. He's toying with us. Arlo already knew that. But why the raven? Was it a coincidence? He glanced at the fence where the real raven had been yesterday. No. No coincidences. That afternoon, Jack called in a favor from an old contact at the sheriff's office. They ran the key from the cabin through every database they had. It matched an old storage facility on the edge of town. Unit 46B. Jack holstered his gun. We're paying it a visit. Arlo wagged his tail once. Not from excitement. From readiness. The storage facility smelled of rust and old rain. Rows of identical metal doors stretched into the distance, each one padlocked. Jack jiggled the key in the lock of 46B. It clicked open too easily. Arlo's fur bristled. This was too easy. The inside of the unit was nearly empty. Nearly. In the center of the room sat a single chair. Emily's scent clung to it. She had been here. Jack swore under his breath. We just missed her. Arlo sniffed the floor. The bleach was overwhelming. Every trace of their man was scrubbed away. But there was something else. Gasoline. The door slammed shut. Jack spun around. What the? A second later, the hiss of a fuse filled the room. Arlo didn't think. He launched at Jack, knocking him toward the sidewall, just as the first flames burst to life near the door. Gasoline ignited instantly, the heat slamming into them like a wave. Jack scrambled to his feet, coughing. We've got to move. The only way out was through the thin wall panels. Jack yanked a crowbar from the corner and started hammering. Metal groaned. Arlo barked wildly, urging him on. The heat was unbearable now, smoke filling his lungs. Finally, the panel gave way. Jack shoved Arlo through first, then crawled after him as the flames swallowed the room. They tumbled into the mud outside, gasping for air. Jack rolled onto his back, staring at the smoke rising from the burning unit. He knew we'd come. Arlo didn't look at the fire. He stared at the tree line. The cologne was there again. The man was watching. For the second time, Arlo saw him, half hidden behind the trees. The same tailored suit, the same calm stance, hands folded like he was attending a garden party instead of arson. When their eyes met, the man raised his hand, a small wave. Then he disappeared into the woods. Jack saw nothing. He was too busy catching his breath. But Arlo understood. This wasn't a hunt anymore. This was a game. And the man made the rules. The morning came gray and hollow, with a sky that looked like the underbelly of a dead thing. The world felt stripped of sound. Even the birds, those relentless gossips of the trees, had gone silent. Arlo felt it deep in his bones. The end was coming. It wasn't the kind of end that appeared with flashing lights or screaming sirens, but the quiet, inevitable sort that smelled like smoke and fear and iron. The man had left a trail. Not a mistake. Arlo knew that now, but an invitation. He had been doing it all along. The cabin, the photograph, the storage unit that became a furnace. It was a game to him, a performance stage for an audience of two. He wanted Arlo to follow. He wanted him to understand. And Arlo followed, because that was what he was made for. The scent was stronger than ever. No bleach this time. No gasoline. Just the raw, unfiltered presence of the man. Expensive cologne mixed with sweat and something else, something acrid, like burnt copper. It cut through the damp morning air like a blade, pulling Arlo forward, step by step, deeper into the maze of abandoned roads and skeletal pines at the edge of town. The path led to an old sawmill, long dead and forgotten. Its walls sagged like rotting teeth, its windows nothing but jagged gaps of darkness. The place reeked of age and ghosts. But Emily's scent was here too, still alive, clinging stubbornly to the damp wood and rusted machinery. Inside, the air was cold and heavy. Dust floated in idle shafts of light, settling on twisted chains and the remnants of a life that once pulsed through this place. Arlo's paws made no sound as he moved through the shadows, his breath controlled, his body coiled tight like a spring. Every step felt like trespassing on something sacred and vile at once. The man had been here not long ago. His trail snaked across the sawdust-strewn floor, past broken crates and stacks of forgotten lumber. And then it split. Two directions. One leading toward the deeper recesses of the mill, a void of darkness that swallowed the scent almost immediately. The other curved toward a narrow corridor, where the smell of Emily's fear blossomed like a poisoned flower. This was it. The choice. To follow the man. To finally end the game. To bring the hunter to ground. Or to follow Emily and save the one who still had something left to lose. Arlo stood in that terrible stillness, caught between instinct and something greater. Every fiber of his being screamed for the hunt, for the satisfaction of sinking teeth into the thing that had haunted them. But then came the memory, a memory that had haunted him longer than this case, longer than this town. A man's hand going limp beneath rubble, a voice gone silent in the chaos of a collapsed building, a life he hadn't been able to save. The one he had failed. He could not fail again. Arlo turned toward Emily's trail. The corridor was narrow, suffocating. The walls pressed in like a coffin, and the floor beneath his paws creaked with the weight of years. Emily's scent grew stronger with every step, spiked with terror, but underpinned by the undeniable thrum of life. She was alive. The room at the end of the hall was a hollow square of shadows, barely lit by a single grimy window. She was there, bound to a chair, just like in the photograph. Her head lolled forward, her hair a dark curtain over her face. But her chest rose and fell. She was breathing. The ropes were knotted with precision, the kind of methodical cruelty that spoke of someone who enjoyed the ritual as much as the result. Arlo moved to her, nose brushing her hands, confirming what his senses already told him, alive but weak. Her scent told him of exhaustion, dehydration, and the faint copper tang of blood from shallow cuts at her wrists. There wasn't much time. He worked at the ropes with his teeth, pulling and tearing, every instinct screaming at the delay. The man would know. He always knew. This was still part of the game, wasn't it? When the last rope gave way, Emily slumped forward, barely catching herself on her hands. She smelled of fear and gratitude, of a soul clinging stubbornly to the edge of the world. Arlo nudged her toward the door, urging her to move. And that was when he smelled it. The man. He was here. No footsteps. No sound. Just presence. Watching. Arlo turned toward the doorway. There he was, framed in the jagged light, like a figure carved out of shadow and arrogance. The same tailored suit, the same calm composure, as though this were nothing more than a meeting between old friends. He leaned against the doorframe, hands loose at his sides, a predator at ease. The scent of his cologne was overwhelming now, layered with sweat and the faint metallic tang of a weapon. Arlo's hackles rose. Every instinct roared for violence, for the chase, for the kill. But the man didn't move. He didn't need to. This was the end of the game, and he had already won. Arlo understood then. The man hadn't wanted to escape. He hadn't wanted to hide. He wanted to be remembered, to be seen. But Arlo had no interest in his performance. He turned away. He pressed his nose to Emily's shoulder, urging her forward, guiding her past the man, past the darkness, past the game itself. He could feel the man's eyes on him, amused, perhaps even pleased, like a puppeteer admiring his marionette breaking its strings. But Arlo didn't look back. The sawmill's exit yawned ahead, spilling them into the cold morning air. Emily stumbled forward, half carried by her own stubborn will, her fear leaking from her in waves that mixed with Arlo's own exhaustion. By the time they reached the road, the SUV was gone. The man had let them leave. He had wanted this. Arlo didn't care. The trail would remain. It always did. But for now, Emily was alive. And that was enough.